Shakalaka, what's going on, everybody? Randall here from Crypto Love, and I am joined today by Hanni Abu from Blocknet. What's going on, Hanni?
Hey, Randall, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I feel like in the beginning, I just want to start off by telling everyone how we got introduced. So, a couple weeks ago, after Consensus, there was the Crypto Influencer Summit, and they changed locations last minute. So, Hanni and I both wound up at the same wrong location at the same time. And we had like a half an hour journey together to get to know each other, but also to find this new location. It was pretty cool, except for the really, really hot train ride. I mean, I was sweating. You remember that?
That was bad, man. You had a jacket on. I felt so bad for you. That was rough.
And I was sweating so bad. But we finally got there thanks to you. And yeah, definitely thanks for directing.
Good old Google Maps.
Yeah, without a doubt. So today we're going to talk about Blocknet, which is a very exciting project. I mean, I didn't really know anything about it before we met, but then I did a whole bunch more research and I'm like, holy cow, this is big, because I know interoperability is huge. So before we get into Blocknet, because there's a lot of material to cover, just tell us about yourself. How did you get into blockchain? How did you get into Blocknet? All this fun stuff.
Sure. So, I got into blockchain and most of crypto. I started out as an investor. I started out back in 2016, I think it is, when the DAO hack happened on Ethereum. I basically just bought a few Ethereum passively. The DAO hack happened, and I just dumped everything. I didn't read into the tech at all, so I just ran. And then I heard again about Ethereum's run up at around March 2017. And that really pulled me in, gained my interest, started, reading deeper into technology, like I'm sure a lot of us did. And, I started learning about other projects. Eventually I found Blocknet. And it really caught my eye because of the potential of the technology. And, I as I just kept reading more about crypto and blockchain, I really felt the need to join in and really help push the whole blockchain ecosystem further. And the best way I saw that was by helping out Blocknet. It was kind of like a real perfect storm of opportunities. We just implemented our self-governance system. So I was able to submit a proposal through our Superblock, and it passed. So right now I'm acting as the project coordinator of the project, basically delegated by the community for this position.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, I guess tell us about Blocknet for everybody. Give us the elevator pitch.
Sure. So Blocknet is an interoperability protocol that allows for the transfer of data and value between different blockchains. That's the gist of it. I know some people may not know what the term interoperability means. So I'll just kind of go into that briefly, just so everyone's on the same page. So interoperability is the ability to interoperate. So if you think about computers back in the early 90s, the 80s, they're all standalone systems. They were very useful, but they were closed systems. Once the internet came along, it opened up a vast amount of possibilities, and that's kind of what we'd see through interoperability. Blockchain right now, they're closed systems. How you have Ethereum just being its own thing, and you have Neo being its own thing. But if they're actually able to communicate amongst each other, that opens a whole slew of possibilities that would allow for next generation apps, which are the real world apps that we need to replace our centralized systems. So interoperability, to summarize, is the ability for these different blockchains to communicate.
Yeah, people say that interoperability is like the subject for 2018, whatever year we're in, 2018. It's like everything needs to be done.
Yeah, so we've actually been pretty, I guess you could say, visionary in this space. The project actually started in 2014, and from the start, the team knew that there was this huge need for interoperability. And it's funny because actually back then, we got flooded a lot. Blocknet got flooded a lot people were coming out of the woodwork saying Blocknet's a scam and what's the need for interoperability? That's stupid. Bitcoin is Bitcoin or always be Bitcoin, things like that. And the end of 2017 rolls around, and it's currently like the biggest problem in our ecosystem at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great position because you have a few years up ahead of the rest of your competition in terms of dealing with interoperability.
Correct. Yeah, it started out with a lot of research. We're one of the first few to do atomic swaps, and I believe we were the first to do it in a fully decentralized manner, meaning with decentralized capital storage, trading out of the wallet, decentralized order book, order matching, and asset exchange using atomic swaps. I'm almost certain that we were the first to do an atomic swap in a fully decentralized manner.
That's pretty rad. Pretty darn rad. So talking about rad things, we're going to get a bit more into interoperability in a minute, but the raddest things, I hear it's the best thing since sliced bread, the new X router. Tell us about that.
Yes. So this is very new. We have it live on testnet at the moment. X router, man, the potential in this thing, I don't even know where to start. So X router, it's the first blockchain router as far as we know in the world. So what that means is you can access information from other blockchains without actually needing to download that blockchain. I guess it's comparable to instead of needing to have carry around a library of books with you, you just have Google. It's kind of the same thing, and you can imagine how big of a game changer Google was. A lot of us lived through that transition. Yeah. So it allows more than just getting information from the chain. You could actually interact with it as well. So if you wanted to send a transaction to someone, you could do that without needing to download the blockchain. A lot of us know that as SPV, or it's the technology that's implemented in light wallets, where you're able to access your balance, send a transaction, all without needing to have the blockchain downloaded. And we actually do that through a network of service nodes. Service nodes on our network are similar to master nodes, but we call them service nodes because they carry a greater responsibility. So these service nodes actually host full nodes of every blockchain that Blocknet is compatible with. And those are used to reference the blockchains whenever we're making calls through X router. And to give an example of what kind of stuff is possible, you can really make multi-chain applications with X router. So let's say you're creating a new blockchain or some type of DApp, and it needs a storage solution. You can actually tap into, let's say Siacoin or storage, something like that, where you need some type of storage functionality. You could actually tap into their chain and offer their storage services as features on your DApp or blockchain, which is amazing. You no longer need to build services from the ground up. You can utilize existing services. That benefits in a few ways. So developers, again, can save time and concentrate on business logic of their application. And it allows a lot more academic research and developer prowess to be concentrated on these, I guess you could call staple microservices in the ecosystem to really refine them. So for instance, if we have one storage blockchain that's used as a microservice for all these other multi-chain applications, then you can actually concentrate all eyes onto this one storage blockchain. You could really optimize it for security, speed, scalability, rather than dispersing and really diluting all this talent among a bunch of different chains. So I think it'll really be a game changer in terms of helping all this talent consolidate and tackle our really difficult problems in the industry and help us move forward.
Yeah, and that, I mean, to me, that sounds like it's going to be huge, because then instead of these blockchains that come out that try and do a little bit of everything, like you see their white papers and they're doing storage and they're doing smart contracts and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing everything. Instead of that, we can have them focusing on one thing, the one thing that they're best at, and then connecting all of them to create this massive ecosystem.
Exactly, you got it. I mean, right now we're pretty much developing in a monolithic architecture sense, and X router, which allows interoperability. It really move us over into a microservice architecture, which will just be phenomenal. I mean, if you're talking about, I know the term Ethereum killer gets thrown around a lot, but this potentially does have the ability to be an Ethereum killer. And I mean, I'm an Ethereum holder. I told you that's how I got started. And I think Ethereum really will stay around for a while. And, it has a huge amount of development mindshare. And I'm not saying it's going to go around in a year, maybe not even 5 years. It's got a huge backing, both enterprise and consumer. But conceptually, if you're talking about an Ethereum killer, it's going to be interoperability. And I think Blocknet really does have a solid shot at filling that gap. Because I mean, platforms, they might not be as prevalent in a few years as they are today. When you're talking about the ability to create microservices, if you have dedicated blockchains, for identity, storage, KYC, basically taking any single service that you would want and making a blockchain for it, and concentrating talent on that to refine it. What you're really doing is you're kind of mimicking the traditional software development ecosystem and bringing it into blockchain. Because let's say you're using Python and you want to, I don't even know, let's say I'm not even a Python. I don't know why I chose that choice. But I don't know. Let's say you just
cool. It sounded cool. I was following you. I was like, where are we going?
Let's say you want to perform a certain action in Python. Rather than doing everything from scratch, you're going to use some of the base libraries, and that's the gist of it. You're going to use some of the base libraries. You're not going to recreate everything from scratch. You're going to use these libraries that are vetted by thousands of developers. It's optimized. It's secure. It does what it's supposed to do. I mean, that's really all it is bringing what we've learned over decades in software development and bringing it to blockchain.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about interoperability and how this is going to be the future. Now, a lot of people probably already know about like the Blockchain Interoperability Alliance and Aon because they do a lot of marketing. So how does Blocknet compare with Aon?
There's a few ways. So let's see where to start. The first thing I would say is that Aon uses smart contracts. Blocknet does not. Blocknet uses a physical infrastructure of service nodes that I previously spoke about. We have just under 500 service nodes right now. We've been above 400 service nodes for about, I don't know, maybe 5 months, 4 months, something like that. So we are growing, and we're really ramping those up. We're working on refining our service node architecture as well. So that will really help the scaling. But to get back to the meat of the discussion, Aon utilizes smart contracts, and the reason why that's important to take note of is because when you use a smart contract, it's acting as an intermediary, and it utilizes proxy tokens within the transactions. So if I were to send, let's say, one coin and exchange it for a coin that you have, using Aon's network, that would actually go to an intermediary token and then to you. Using Blocknet's network, it would be directly peer-to-peer. So it's trustless in that sense. There's no middleman. You're in control of your funds at all times. And we really believe that that's something that a lot of people are getting wrong, because we tend to see smart contracts used as I guess you could say a handicap in a way, taking a shortcut route, whereas we're taking the physical infrastructure route, because peer-to-peer, that's what blockchain was built on. Why wouldn't we go down that path? But I don't want to belittle anything that Aeon's doing. We think they have a great team. They're making huge progress in the direction that they're going. It's just that in our eyes, we personally don't see that as the way forward. Another difference is when they work on interoperability, they're doing each blockchain one-off, while Blocknet is doing it in a way where we're kind of building fallbacks and conditions so that the more blockchains that you make compatible, the more likely that the next one that you test will already be compatible. You don't have to keep on integrating each one one by one. And the reason why that's important is, just the scalability and the manpower. It's kind of like if with the internet, you had to do some manual work to connect yourself to the internet every time, and you had to program something just to use your computer. That'd be ridiculous. This way, once we get to having so many blockchains integrated into the Blocknet network, which, by the way, last time I checked, I think we're at 87 blockchains, and we're currently working on Ethereum and ERC20 integration, which is not too far away, which will then allow all Ethereum tokens to be compatible, not just compatible within them, but also compatible with other, Bitcoin-based blockchains. And we're also working on a bug fix. When that becomes fixed, we'll then have another, I believe, 90 more on top of that. So we're definitely making huge strides in what we're compatible with. And as we go forward, let's say we get to coin 300, chances are 98% of the coins that we test after that will already be compatible. So let's say you were creating your own blockchain. As soon as you make it live, chances are you're compatible with the Blocknet network. You don't have to go through any extra steps. You're ready. You can start connecting with other blockchains, pulling their services into your offerings, and really build the blockchain of tomorrow. And that's really what we're about, is connecting all these different communities, connecting these blockchains, and really help drive this ecosystem forward.
That's awesome. So you're doing all the hard work up front, so later on everyone else can just join in and you won't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Cool. So aside from interoperability, you also have the block DEX.
Yes. I guess I'll just jump right into that. So block DX, as it's spelled, or block DEX as sometimes it's pronounced, is our first dApp on the network that we're using to showcase what's possible with our protocol. And it's a decentralized exchange, again, party to party, wallet to wallet, no middleman. It's completely trustless. You're in control of your funds. From the second it leaves your wallet to the second the wallet comes back, the next coin comes back into the wallet, its respective wallet. Man, I'm choking up on my words here.
That's okay. You could I do that all the time. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you just do it.
But yeah, you get the point. It's completely trustless, no middleman. We decentralize every single component of the exchange, including I mentioned it earlier as well. Capital storage. You're trading from your own private keys, from your own wallets that you already own, from your own computer, and then order books and order matching. Those are managed by our service nodes, and it's all cross-verified among them. So there's no opportunity for malicious activity there. And then the atomic swaps for the exchange. And throughout each point of the exchange process on the DEX, we're doing multiple verifications and checks to make sure that no malicious activity is taking place within the process. And if somebody was to cancel the trade or anything, each trader would get their funds back. So there's, we've done various cases. We've vetted it a lot, and yeah, yeah. When it's in the user's control the whole time, there's not really anything that can go wrong. And I know what your next question is going to be. It's going to say, you're going to ask, what's the competition of BlockDEX?
Are you psychic? Do you read my mind?
I'll just roll right into that one. I'd say Komodo and their Barter DEX. We have respect for them. They do a good job. They're actually living up to the term decentralized, because there are a lot of decentralized exchanges out there that aren't really decentralized, and it's really doing the ecosystem a disservice and the communities a disservice by misinforming them, by trying to use this buzzword to capitalize on. Yes, they have some components that are decentralized, but there's also certain components that are centralized, and we like to call those hybrid exchanges. And I really wish that more people would use that term more often. Again, just to help inform users that just because you're doing atomic swaps, that doesn't mean it's decentralized. There's still the order books, the order matching. There's opportunities for front running. If you have to create a login or do KYC, that's not decentralized in our opinion. That's another story though. With BlockDEX, you don't have to do any KYC. We're strictly just building the network, and it's completely P2P, and it's up to the traders to follow their local laws. We leave that in their hands, very similar to how it works with torrenting. It's a very, very similar concept. But yeah, I just want to make sure that all your viewers are aware that you have to be careful when you see something says it's a decentralized exchange. It very well may not be. And a good key indicator is if anybody from the team is able to help you out with a trade that's not just instructional of how to perform the trade, it's not decentralized. Because if it's really decentralized, once you click to submit your order, it's out of it. It should be out of their hands. If it's really decentralized, there's nothing that they can do for you after that point. If there is, that's a very clear indicator that there's a middleman somewhere, and there's a centralized point somewhere where they're actually able to stick their hands in there and help you out, which is exactly what you don't want.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the two things that we talked about are the things that absolutely blew my mind when I found out about Blocknet, because I remember back in like December, January, I was talking with a whole bunch of people, and they're like, the biggest things for 2018 are interoperability and decentralized exchanges. And it's like, Blocknet is tackling both of those, and it's not like you're just a brand new ICO that's just come out. You've been around for 3-4 years already working on this, and you've already got a lot of development done.
Yeah. So we, again, mentioned this before too. We've done a lot of research. We were some of the first ones to do this. So there was really a lot to look into. We took our time contemplating how to move forward with the project. We wanted to make sure that everything was very well thought out. So we want to make sure that we're treading carefully as we're moving forward. And eventually we've gotten to the point where we are getting more comfortable with our tech, and we're starting outreach. For the first 3 years, we've done zero outreach. Like we throw a few Twitter posts out there here and there, but we've done zero marketing. But we've actually just started marketing about 3 weeks ago. It's going phenomenal. We're having tons of new people in our chat. Everyone that we talk to at events absolutely loves the project. So yeah, it's going real well so far. Everyone's just mind blown when they hear about the project and what we've accomplished so far.
Cool. Cool. So a couple other things to talk about. So staking nodes, service nodes, super blocks, governance, tokenomics.
Big list.
Yeah.
Let's start out from the top. Staking and service nodes you mentioned.
Mhm.
So we are proof of stake. Just like any other coin, staking is this generally the same, but we don't have what's it called, coinage. It's all based off of probability. So the amount of coins that you're staking versus the amount that are on the network, that's your probability for hitting the next block.
Mhm.
Block rewards are split up between service nodes and stakers. So each block reward for us is one block. This can get confusing. Our token's called block. So each block reward is one block. The block time is 1 minute. So in a day, you're hitting 1,440 block. Out of each block, 0.7 block goes to service nodes, and 0.3 block goes to stakers. And these are their rewards for helping secure the network. So for staking, right now, I believe the ROI is somewhere around 13%. For service nodes at the moment.
That's better than my bank. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, man, it's better than a lot of other staking coins too. And I mean, usually when you hear 13%, it's some, for lack of a better coin, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Some small cap coin that's like 1 million or like 500,000, and it offers 20%, and there's like 1 million or 1 trillion coins in circulation. But yeah, there's about 13% ROI at the moment. For service nodes, it's about it's usually about 18% ROI, but recently I think it's around 20, if I'm not mistaken. And that's pretty much it. It's more complex than this, but generally speaking, if you want to dumb it down, the ratio is, or the probability is, your chances of hitting a block is roughly the probability of the amount of service nodes you own versus how many are currently on the network. It's both of them are roughly probability based. Service nodes a little bit more complicated with the list. I don't necessarily want to get into that.
We can just kind of give an overlay today.
And then on top of that, there's fees on the network, because we're not just a currency. We are a service-oriented blockchain. Our blockchain has high utility. So similar to Ethereum, the services on our network charges a fee, similar to a gas fee, I guess you could call it. And those fees get distributed among these service providers as well, on top of the block rewards. So as the network grows and we gain developer mindshare, everyone's plugging into Blocknet. That could be absolutely, tremendous potentially. But we'll see where that goes. But a lot of us really believe in the project, and we think that we will gain traction as we mature. Moving over to your other points, you mentioned
governance, super blocks. I think you went over a bit of tokenomics.
So I'll just jump into tokenomics since it's more related. The block token is used for fees on the network. So that drives demand, because as you're wanting to access the services on our blockchain, you need to own block. It's the same exact driving mechanism as with Ethereum. Basically, it's not much different. That pretty much settles that. Moving on to super blocks, you said, and self-governance. So we have a self-governance system that's based off of, or actually forked off of, PIVX back in September, where if anybody's familiar with Dash or PIVX, you should have a good idea. It's nearly the same thing, where you have a proposal system where you can submit proposals to the network, and then every month there's what's called a super block, and the service nodes on the network get to vote for these proposals, and whatever passes gets funded through the super block up to a maximum of 4,320 block, which is 10% of the block minted in a month. So every month, 10% can then be minted in a super block. If none of the proposals pass, then nothing's minted. There's no coins generated. If only 2,000 gets passed, then you have 2,000 block being minted. And currently, to give you an idea, a little bit going back to tokenomics a little bit, right now our market cap or our circulation is at around 5 million, I think 5,150,000, something like that. So currently our inflation is somewhere around 10%, which it helps that the rewards are higher, because that definitely helps beat that out. Yeah, and then that decreases as you move forward. You can find links on our website that provides more information to that as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sounds like you have a very decentralized peer-to-peer system completely set up.
Yeah, we take great pride in that, and we really don't like taking shortcuts when doing that. Especially on the technology side. On the governance side, we're still working out some kinks. How do we making sure everyone's voice is heard. We want to try and build off of the models that Pivx has, Dash has. So we're still working out ways on how to improve that and take it a step further, because we do believe it can be improved. And that goes back into another, I guess you could say, not ethos, but trait of the project. We're always looking to improve, decentralize, improve, and bring everyone together. That's pretty much what we're all about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what have you got upcoming?
Yeah, so upcoming, I'm just going to look at this list for a while. We actually have a poll which can be found on our Twitter account, which is twitter.com/the_Blocknet. There are some imposters out there, so be careful, the_Blocknet. So going down these items in this poll that we're taking just to gauge interest, we have direct trading, which will allow trading directly from one party to another. So if I were to put an order out there for you and only you would be able to accept this. And that's hugely useful for OTC or any big whales. If you have any agreement off the books and chats or anything like that, you can simply give a person your address, and you can say, okay, the person with this address and this address only is able to accept this order. That's also hugely useful for escrows. You could build escrow services off of that, which is awesome because escrows, while they're trying to do their best with the technology they have, obviously they can be improved by becoming trustless. And there are some semi-trustless services out there for escrows, but they usually only do Bitcoin and Litecoin, and I think Ethereum. Only the top few. Dash with some of them. But if you're able to add our 80 plus compatible coins, eventually, 99.9% of coins out there, that's phenomenal. Another item currently is X router capability. Now this one is huge. So
I think you're understating it there.
It's, again, this goes back to being very huge contender for being an Ethereum killer per se. But X router plugin capability. In general terms, it allows for decentralized cloud services, basically. So Microsoft, if they want to operate Azure in a more decentralized manner, they can create a Blocknet X router plugin, which is fantastic. There's a lot of enterprises that use Microsoft and all these enterprise level solutions. If they wanted to move to more decentralized solutions, currently that doesn't exist. But X router makes that possible. And that could really open the door for a bunch of enterprise level services to enter the network, and corporations. It's unbelievable. If you want to offer stock market data, you can do that. If you want to offer weather data, you can do that in a decentralized and verifiable way. It pretty much oracleizes it. Yeah, I don't really, this is something that's very hard to explain and really paint a picture for everyone, because
it's basically where any business, any idea could almost instantaneously become decentralized, cloud based.
Exactly. NASDAQ could run their APIs through our service node network, through our X-Router plugin, and they can monetize their APIs through that. And then decentralized applications and blockchains would then have access to that data in a decentralized way as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a huge, man, the possibilities here are so vast. Like I myself even sometimes have a hard time comprehending it. Sometimes we'll just get into discussions in the office and things will come up and we're just like, man, like we're just constantly blowing ourselves away when we're thinking about it and thinking about what's possible. And really, we think this is kind of what Ethereum wanted to be in our eyes, because we're really allowing for the connection between the centralized world and the decentralized world through this as well. So not only will we allow for interoperability to start connecting blockchains to allow for real world applications of tomorrow, but that's only part of the equation, because there's going to be a transition point. We're not going to be able to go from centralized to decentralized like that. There's definitely going to be a transitional period as we're building out other infrastructure, such as instrument data, sensor data, a bunch of these IoT things. We could even have IOTA services routing through the X-Router plugin. So we have access to all of their Internet of Things devices. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely phenomenal, and that's really going to help bridge the gap between the centralized and decentralized world, and make that transition to full decentralizations. And all those services on the network can be monetized. They can be offered for free, or if you want, you can charge a fee, and that really goes to helping developers as well. Let's say you're somebody that wants to create an X-Router plugin. You don't have to do it for free, because what you can do is you can charge a service fee on the network, very similar to how you charge for apps in the iTunes store, in the Apple store. Every time someone downloads it, you get your cut. I think it's like 70% or something for the Apple store, but you get your cut for what you created. Every time somebody accesses your service on the X-Router network, you get a part of those fees. We're still working out the details. We can't really commit to anything at this time, but that's the general concept of it. You will be able to profit off your development, and that we really think that's going to help a huge amount in bringing in a developer mindshare as well, when they're able to monetize their dev work. It's no longer free. They get to work for their own gains and work for benefiting the ecosystem at the same time. I mean, in my eyes, that seems like a huge win. You can really be your own boss and be your own freelancer in a sense, because you're making things that pay yourself, and it's just phenomenal what that's going to allow.
Yeah, and at least what came to mind when you're talking about the X-Router plugins is like back in the day, probably like, I don't know, maybe 3-5 years ago, when the cloud became like the thing and every business wanted to be on the cloud, even though they didn't know what the heck the cloud was. But like soon is going to be decentralization. Every business is going to want to be decentralized. And these X-Router plugins are going to allow people and businesses to do that without having to program a whole blockchain, without having to hire all these developers, all that stuff.
Exactly. I mean, you just make API endpoints, and boom, it's relatively that easy to migrate a system over, in a sense. Obviously I'm dumbing it down a little bit, but it's not a huge.
Well, I thank you, because now I can understand it.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge monolithic task to make a service compatible as a plugin, and that's a big takeaway as well. Yeah, man, we're just so excited for this, and we really can't wait for the word out, for the word to get out, and for people to realize what we're doing here.
Cool.
It's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm happy we saved it for the end of the interview, so only the people who watched all the way through got the juicy stuff.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, there's a few other items I'm just going to touch on here.
Mhm.
There's Lightning integration, or an alternative. There are some alternatives out there to Lightning. So that would basically allow for transactions to occur faster. We're going to be building private order books eventually. We're still working on the roadmap. This is pretty much our roadmap moving forward, or the items that will be on our roadmap moving forward. So a private order book is an order book which is private. So let's say we have an ID for this order book, special ID, where I can share it with you. This way I can post to it, you can post to it. We can share it with our own little internal group of friends. And this way, those orders are only accessible within us. It's not public, but it's also not direct. It's kind of like, some middle ground. And that's cool for dark pools. So dark pools and OTC trading. So that's kind of exciting too. That'll open a lot of doors. If you want to think of an opportunity, you can have exchanges. Let's say Binance and Bittrex, Huobi, all these big names. They have reserves for their currencies. They have a pool so that as traders are depositing and withdrawing, there's some leeway there to make sure that they have the funds available, because it's very hard to predict. Everyone might withdraw at once. It's not likely, but it's possible. But if they get into danger zones, they have to rebalance their reserves. So this could be a very useful tool, allowing them to do that in a trustless manner. Because, they're all big names. They don't want word to get out there them screwing themselves over. But at the same time, why take the chance when you're probably balancing a few $1 million at once? It's not worth it. If you could do it in a trustless manner, why not?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Cool.
Yeah, and then we have something called XChat, which is basically an encrypted chat. That's cool. We can actually that could probably actually possibly be offered as a plugin service as well, so you can implement it in various other services. We have not on the new roadmap, but coming up soon. We have our wallet redesign coming out. That's something that we're very excited about. It's a very sexy wallet. It's not the old Bitcoin QT wallet that everyone has that's been forked for years on years on years, and somehow gets uglier and uglier every time. We built a new wallet, or we're in the process of building a new wallet, which is not in Electron. We care about security, and Electron has some security concerns. So we want to make sure it was done in Qt, which is, basically saying it's done in C++. So it's very low level and a lot more secure. That's something that we're very excited about. Really refreshing design. We spend a lot of time with the UX designer, trying to make everything within 2 clicks. It should be a lot more convenient for people to use. We're actually building in our proposal submission process into that, and you can even vote through that. So that's pretty cool. And eventually in the future, we even want to add in a chat within our wallet, so service nodes can actually communicate and discuss these proposals further. this way they can kind of flesh things out amongst themselves in kind of a democratic way by having discussions and saying, oh, that's a good point you brought up. I didn't think of that, or maybe, and that thing that they didn't think of might be a good thing or it might be a bad thing. And that could really help educate them and help educate each other in the voting process. So that's something that I don't think anybody is doing right now, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some other items, but those are the big items.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of awesome stuff you're working on there.
Yeah.
So, anything else that you wanted to discuss while we're chatting?
Oh man, yeah.
By the way, sweet shirt. I forgot to mention that. But
thank
yeah,
you.
nice shirt.
Representing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, are you a trader?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it'd be cool to discuss real quick kind of what the implications could be of interoperability. I mean, we touched on it a tiny bit with Ethereum, but like kind of seeing interoperability becoming a bigger and bigger movement and bigger players coming out, and we're getting closer to that. How do you see that really playing out in the market? Do you think that we are going to see a movement towards blockchains that are doing one specific thing really well, or do you think we'll still continue to see these monolithic applications? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So, man, in terms of that, I think that probably blockchains will be going towards one core thing, especially if there is interoperability, because that, like, I mean, the only thing that I can use to kind of try and compare it is to compare it to previous analogies. So kind of like we were talking about where there were the local area networks before, or like just the individual PCs, and then they get attached with intranet and then internet and all this stuff. So that's the only thing that I can kind of contemplate it with. I think the amount of value to be produced just in general on the blockchain is going to explode with that, because then you're not going to have these silos of, you're not going to have all these geniuses with Neo, Dahong Fei, and City of Zion. You're not going to have like Ethereum with Vitalik and all the Ethereum developers. You're not going to have the Bitcoin and then the forks of Bitcoin. You're going to have the blockchain and just this immense value and just
yeah, kind of the same way. I kind of foresee, as I touched on before, these dedicated microservices where you can start pulling them in together and just concentrating on business logic. But within that, I kind of also see, I guess you could call it a vanilla blockchain being developed, where it's used as a base layer. So this vanilla blockchain, just fork that GitHub repo, pull in your different services, connect them together, drop in your consensus mechanism. Do you want proof of work? Do you want proof of stake? Are you developing a DAG? So really componentizing all these pieces. And I think that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And especially when you throw a UI on top of that, and pretty much anybody can create or pull together these components. Yeah, that's going to be so cool. But an interesting wrench to throw in there is thinking about how you can have once interoperability is possible, in I guess you could say full. What's the word I'm looking for? Full throttle? That's not the word I'm looking for. I don't know. At full force.
Yeah.
You could really have a blockchain coming out and forking, I don't know, just creating a blockchain from scratch and pulling in all these microservices and competing with these big names out of nowhere. They don't need to go and redevelop the wheel like all these other ones have done. They can literally just pull these services in, which I think will really, really disrupt things. It's kind of like when we talk about the onset of the internet, everyone was doing things by paper and everything before. And, web browsers came along, people were throwing up internet services, Amazon, things like that. and completely destroying the economy for, you know, like your mom and pop shops or things like that, or even your local hardware store, because now you have Home Depot there that's you can order things online from and just go and pick up and things like, or have delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What's your take on that? How do you think? Because they're going to be so agile, you know.
Oh, yeah.
If something better comes out, you can just say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to change this storage solution for that storage solution," or
Yeah.
you know, oh, there's a better proof of stake mechanism. Let me use that.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible in like 20 years to look back and be like, wow, that's what we were thinking then. And but yeah, it's one thing with trading where you always got to, because for a long time I've been like a Bitcoin maximalist where I'm just like, Bitcoin's the thing. Like, I know a lot of other projects are awesome, but I also really, really believe in Bitcoin. But, you know, with things like that, you always, because I again, taking an analogy back to the beginning of the internet, you had, you know, all these different things. You had the dot-com bubble, you had pets.com raising millions and millions of dollars and then just disappearing. And then, but out of that, you have Amazon, you have Google, you have Facebook, all these different things. So it's kind of trying to stay on top of it to figure out what's going to be that thing.
Yeah, it's a very hard, and you know, you're taking risks because you don't want to wait until it's a sure thing,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's everyone's there already. You know, it's probably actually riskier at that point because it could drop a lot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But you know, you also don't want to get in too early because you're like, is it gonna make it? You know, is this blockchain that's hasn't run an ICO at all, just launched, and is putting you know, a blockchain out that has all these services pulled together from all these blockchains in like a month? That'd be phenomenal, just to be able to see that agility and speed to market through that. And you know, while the prowess and the power between the power and the technology is there, it's still risky because, you know, are people going to be accepting of that? Are they going to see it as some type of weakness because they can't develop things on their own? You know, it's tough. It's tough to foresee what's going to happen, or maybe they will see how, you know, like, you know, the other side of the coin is, again, they're agile, you know, and they can just, you know, pivot on a dime. It's tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited, but as an investor, it's also scary.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. But I mean, like I said, I can't wait to look back 20 years from now and be like, wow, you know, that was crazy.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the reasons why I joined Blocknet as well. I mean, I've always watched shows like what's that? Halt and Catch Fire. I don't know if you've ever heard of that show.
mm,
So it's basically about how the internet came about, and I was always fascinated about that period, even like the dawn of computers. It's like, man, I always wished that I could be around in that period. And then, you know, I was looking around and I found Blocknet, and it just dawned on me, like, here's my chance. I can be part of something that's bigger than me.
mm-hmm.
You know, and that's something that really drew me to the product, because, you know, again, we're not doing things as the middleman using smart contracts like these other coins. We're literally building infrastructure. We're building the network that connects these blockchains. And, you know, even with me being around the project for a while, it still blows my mind to think about like how advanced this technology is. It's just so cool. I'm very excited to see what's to come in the next few years, especially as we're able to start, you know, running hackathons and things like that, and having competitions of people building off of our API. It's going to be so cool.
Yeah, and you're definitely on the cutting edge frontier, because you're not just building crypto kitties or something like that. You are working on interoperability and decentralized exchanges.
Yeah, and it's two huge things that are very much needed in the space right now.
Awesome. Well, Anything else before we close it up?
No, I would just say if anybody who's been interested in the talk, come join our Discord. The link can be found in the footer of our website. I'm sure Randall wouldn't mind putting in his description as well. Also, we do project updates every 2 weeks, so you can actually sign up to our newsletter on our website as well. We have a great community. In our eyes, a project is all about the community. We'd love for you to join our community. Very innovative, always again looking for how we can improve our own project, improve on the space, working together to achieve that as a team, the community as a team. Yeah, we'd be glad to have you guys come and join us, and we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hanni. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so happy to see you again. It was so fortuitous that we met that day, you know?
Yeah. But thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity of you having us on.
Cool. My pleasure. We'll be in touch. Maybe we'll have you guys again in the future for some updates.
Yeah, maybe we could do some type of demo or something. I think that'd be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Cool, man. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
All right. See ya.